Hi, a few weeks ago we got an email from our car dealer saying did we want to change our car. This particular model is going to be extinct soon, and this was one of our last chances to purchase a new one. Well, the car was less than 2 years old, and even now has only done 4,000 miles, so it was easy to say no to the offer. But each time I go out I have the choice locally to either take the bike or take the car. Our nearest bus stop is about 20 minutes walk away, and so we do use personal transport for reasonable local journeys. By bike it's about 10 minutes into town, and I'm pleased to have the electric motor on my bike to help me get up the hill. The battery gives me a round trip range of about 20 miles, which can be enjoyable and useful. But I often choose to drive journeys in this range for a combination of reasons. Firstly, my wife and I are doing the journey together, and I am the sole cyclist. Secondly, there is too much stuff to carry on a bike. Thirdly, I can't identify a safe route, particularly problematical after dark. And lastly, the weather is just a bit too challenging. Now that's a pity. In his book, There Is No Planet B, Mike Berners-Lee displays the electric bike as having the lowest footprint in terms of the area on the Earth of any transport mode. And that is when solar panels are used for the energy source. For journeys up to about 30 miles each way, we tend to use the car. It's a town car and on average gives about 57 miles to the gallon. So how much CO2 am I responsible for those travels? I've averaged about 2,400 miles a year, that's 3,900 kilometres. That needed 43 gallons of fuel, about 195 litres, and burning that emits about 460 kilograms of CO2 equivalent. That's pretty low by national averages, but it's still half a tonne. Do I change the car to avoid this half a tonne of emissions per year? I found very helpful analyses in Carbon Brief, Mike Berners-Lee, How Green Are Bananas, and the online Which tabulation of the emissions of car travel, model by model. Generally, the emission of cars have been assessed on the basis of having a lifetime of 15 years and driven 450,000 kilometres, so 10,000 kilometres a year, about 2.5 times my current use. A car like mine is estimated to have 6 tonnes of embodied carbon in its manufacture. Most estimates say that the carbon footprint of manufacturing of an EV car is higher, largely because of the battery. An estimate of the excess is about 3.5 tonnes. That's an upfront cost in increased emissions. EV vehicles have much lower emissions when in use. So how long does it take to be beneficial? Taking my current use of this car, using the Which data of emissions while driving, called tank to wheel, it works out about 7 years. If you use the emissions from well to wheel, that's life cycle including the extraction and delivery of the energy, it takes much longer. And it's quite possible then that purchasing an EV replacement for my car would result in an increase in emissions before I cease driving. So what can I do to decrease my emissions? So let's return to the bike avoidance reasons. Number 1. My wife and I are doing the journey together. Well, we are sharing the journeys then, so our emissions per person are halved. Number 2. There's too much stuff to carry. I've refound a camping rucksack, and so that can cope with a bit larger load of shopping. There will be some times when a car is needed, and perhaps then I can use my wife's for those occasions. Number 3. I can't identify a viable safe route, especially after dark. By either using short drives to a station car park or cycling there and using the train does reduce risk and also increases range. I guess I reduced emissions by about 5 kilos last week on 3 journeys. That's about half my rate of emission. Number 4. The weather is a bit too challenging, but it's not that often. You might remember it when it's like it, but generally it happens relatively rarely. My greenest option really is to use all these reduction methods and move to not having this car at all. When cycling becomes non-viable for me, there may be a choice of small electric vehicles like the Citroën Ami. In the next video, I'll think about the larger car, which is coming up to 5 years old and raises different questions.